Gynae sessions that we keep having. And this is, I think, one of the most important sessions that all doctors should be aware of. And today we are fortunate to hear this from a legend who kind of is on a mission to help retail investors win in the stock market, and also help all us doctors be aware of what is the basics of personal finance. And many of us have a myth that the way that we earn, we will keep earning it till we die. But I think in the present day situation, the retirement life also should have equally disposable income as we are having now. And we can't eternally keep doing ops gynae because of the risks and the stress that it gives all of us. So I'm very glad that today we are going to hear it from the person who has been in this field for quite some time now and has immense experience. His mother-in-law is a doctor, and he is very, very fond of our society, and he has agreed to just for all of us here, so that we are better in terms of our financials, and also we will have a better understanding as to how to invest, which is equally important as we put in our efforts into learning our skill sets in ops gynae. I think this is also equally important to learn to invest our hard-earned money. And I think ops gynae people are one of the rare set of people who really put their blood and sweat into their profession day and night. And we deal with two lives every day. So over to you, sir. You can take over from here.
Thank you very much. So, like Dr. Shilpa pointed out, my mother-in-law is actually an obs-gyne person. My wife is also a doctor. So, I wanted to become a doctor too when I was growing up. But when I was in my 10th standard, my mom made a remark, "Ki boss, you should probably try for medicine because you might not qualify for engineering." And then I got triggered, and that's how I ended up here. But otherwise, I would have loved to join your side because I think I've always loved medicine. So even now, whenever Minu, my wife's name is Minu, whenever Minu explains anything in medicine, I'm all ears, and I just somehow find your work way more fascinating than anything else anybody else is doing. But before we get started, right, I want just 3 volunteers to tell me what exactly your expectation is from this session. Like, why are you here and what do you want out of this? You can turn on your camera and say this to me, please, so that I can get a benchmark. 3 volunteers, or I'll have to do inky pinky ponky with somebody. Dr. Indumati, I'm so sorry I'm doing this, but could you please turn on your camera and tell us why you're here and what's your expectation?
Sir, this link was provided regarding the personal financing.
Yeah.
So, actually, what is the basis for this personal financing? How has to one go about it? What are the risks and challenges? So,
Okay.
I expect that from you, sir.
Okay. Praful says he follows me on Twitter. That is a lot of pressure. Okay. And one more volunteer, please. Like, what ideally at the end of this, what would you like to have learned? Anybody, you can turn on your camera and mic.
Hello, sir. This is Dr. Sumitra.
Hi, Dr. Sumitra.
Yeah. So actually, is that we have been investing in things whenever our friends or our people tell us, so gold is good, you invest, this is good, mutual fund, this fund is good. So actually, we don't have the basic. We just go by mostly we say, and then probably some of us do have some amount of knowledge over the years. but then it's all very random and everything put together. So how do we look at it as a part of investment for ourselves? Because rather now the children are grown up, they all are or either working or they're coming up, but we need to look after us with all with the, yeah, you know very well how
I get that.
the obstetrics part of it is there. So that's how we don't know. We tend to rely on our husbands or any of our brothers or anybody like that. But at some time we need to take a call as to what is good for us.
That is absolutely true. That's absolutely. I struggle
That's
with
my
this problem every day in my life.
yeah. So
So,
that's my question, because I do put in various places and I have been investing, but with a wealth advisor. I need to check him to see whether I'm doing the right thing. He's doing the right thing.
understood. Understood.
There are many
Understood.
times I'm going blindly. He's doing a good work, but at the end of it, it's my money.
Correct.
So
Correct. That is true.
I have to be very sure before when he might be good. And sometimes if he puts me into a wrong idea, then it's
Yeah.
my money which goes down.
Understood. Absolutely understood. Okay. So I have a decent understanding of so I also see similar problems at home. So I'm kind of tuned to it somewhat, and I've also been talking to some of my friends in your field to get a sense of where this is going. But let me just I'll just share my screen to a PowerPoint which I had made for this. You can see this same slide, right? It says, I mean, I'm just, yeah, I can see the share. So, just before we get started, like I said, my first thanks to Minu, because she's the one who gives me a very good context on the problems doctors face in personal finances. Seeing her go through this entire journey has been a very enlightening experience for me. Again, my personal finance mistake, I've made plenty of them. I'll discuss some of these also. And special thanks to Bhuvanesh, who is my partner in Zerodha. I can't say colleague because it's a different organization, but he heads their personal finance and bonds and all that. So a lot of input from their team to this. So we'll get started, right? So see, the thing is this, right? One thing, so I follow a lot of personal finance people who are all over India. And I listen to their webinar, read their tweets, etc., etc. Like my single biggest problem I have with personal finances, everybody says how to save, how to optimize, how to this, how to do that. I think, see, the one biggest personal finance lesson I have learned in my life, right, and I can say which is true for my case is that, see, I had almost zero savings till mid 30s because I was just doing one startup after the other. And I literally mean it, right? Except for a PF account, which is hardly anything. Or let me put it this way, right? My personal finances or savings till I hit, let's say 35, was not even like a respectable double-digit lakh number. And it was a deliberate choice I made. And I'll tell you why. I think the most important thing for personal finance is to figure out how to increase your top line, right? Everything else gives percentage improvement in your this thing. You might improve 1%, 2%, 3% return on your portfolio, whatever, but trying to increase your top line gives you 2x, 3x, 4x kind of returns on your life. And most people should know this, should internalize it, but I'm surprised how many people spend disproportionate amount of time worrying about their portfolio and finances in their early 20s or mid 20s when they shouldn't be, right? So basically, if you're at a very young stage of your life, right, or if you're just out of college, I mean, I'm sure there are some people among us who are in that life stage. I'm not sure how important it is to spend a disproportionate amount of time thinking about savings, mutual funds, etc., right? And if you're also earning below a certain threshold, not sure, because see, happiness is not an end destination, right? Happiness is a sum total of all your experiences in life. So if you're disproportionately spending time on compromising experiences, reducing quality of life so that you can have a slightly better portfolio, I'm not sure if that is a good idea either, right? And the most important thing to realize is at this particular stage of your life, I mean, at this particular stage, I mean, at all particular points of your time, at least till you're well into your mid 40s or mid 50s, your most important asset is your time, right? Only after retirement, perhaps or near the retirement is something more important than your time. So the most important personal finance tip I will suggest is you should always have a rough idea of how much your time is worth, right? And everything starts with that. So if you have to spend 3 hours of your, if you find yourself spending 3 hours of your week every week thinking about how to increase your portfolio or something like that, when your portfolio's worth is less than 10 lakhs, it's probably not worth it, because 1% on that portfolio is only like 10,000 rupees. It's simply not worth it. Even if you have a 1 crore portfolio, if you increase your portfolio's performance in a year by 1%, it's only going to add 1 lakh to your portfolio's performance, right? And I'm pretty sure you know it's a number which you can easily make if you have a reasonably big private practice within no time. So so basically my first starting point, which at least I have realized from my personal experience, is that the single biggest investment.
See, your most important asset is your time.
Yeah, absolutely. The single biggest investment is you. So if I'm if I'm below 30, or even if I'm in my mid 30s, I'll probably upskill, learn new things, build networks, grow your business or practice. I would not bother about opening a demat account or increasing 10 different portfolio allocations or adding one extra layer or spending 2 hours with my personal finance advisor every quarter or something. I'll just say, you know what, that's all fine, but let me increase my skill set, learn new things, build networks. And this is a very basic advice. I know most of you must have realized it already, but it is surprising how many people are spending a disproportionate amount of time looking at their finances. So we look at the activity and data of roughly 250,000 people every day, and it is just astonishing to me how much people spend. Like, I don't think I know people who don't check their portfolio at least once every day. I don't know what it does to them except increase anxiety. But the biggest pitfall in personal finance is people start spending too much time on finance when they should be focusing on growing their top line, right? Which has nothing to do with finance, which has everything to do with your core work. So we should actively start thinking about personal finance at a stage when you have a reasonable wealth or income, or when your income or wealth generates more value than what's your time worth right now, right? Till then, I'll just say is, right, just have a saving habit and investing habit in a small way. Do not sink time and effort there. It doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter whether you are investing in small cap ETF or mid cap direct mutual fund or large cap. It doesn't. You don't have to spend 3 hours thinking about should I do it in SBI Magnum fund or ICICI Prudential fund or Kotak ETF. It doesn't matter. Take anything. It's all right. It's not going to make any difference to your life. The only thing you have to be mindful about is don't worry too much about it. Don't spend too much time on it. Just have a habit. Even that is optional at your early stage in life, because if you're finding it too difficult to have a habit, right? Because see, if you're 25, you're not going to be 25 next year. If you're in your 20s, you won't be in your 20s when you're in 30s. If you don't live life, then chances are that you'll be very frustrated in your mid 30s, and you might do a lot of stupid things with your money if you did not live enough in your 20s. I mean, again, personal experience, but it can vary. So this is the first point I'd say. With that out of the way, I'll again come back to one more point, which I realized from my wife a lot. So like I said, my wife is a doctor, and I would I would think of her as one of the smarter people I have met in my life. But when it comes to personal finance, at least initially, she had a very big mental roadblock. Ki, yaar, I have to, what do I do now? All of these terms, ROI, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't want to get started. To the point that she didn't take the first step except doing ELSS and FD and savings account and all of that. Actively deploying money or thinking about actively deploying money was not something. It was just a roadblock, right? And like Dr. Shilpa earlier said, I'm so sorry, I'm sort of bad with names. Like, we don't want our husbands to finally step in. So that stage is where we were initially. But of course, now she talks about yield curve and whatnot. So you have to get out of that first comfort zone problem take the first step. There's no complex rocket science or math here. It becomes very, very easy as you get to know more and more. There is nothing you need in investing other than A plus B divided by C or multiplied by D. So just you have to take a first step. We'll talk about how to take that first step in the coming couple of slides. And again, one more hygiene thing. I know this is very basic, but I see this happening a lot. Please protect all your accounts and passwords. It is astonishing how many times we hear about money being stolen from demats or mutual fund holding accounts or banks, or it's crazy. If you don't have 2FA, please get 2FA. Two-factor authentication has to be a non-negotiable. So I don't know what is the baseline, just for a sense, right? This is show of hands interaction, right? How many of you actually have hello? You can do a show of hands interaction. Do all of you have a two-factor authentication software for your demats, everything? If not, please do get it. Very, very important, because see, this is a place where one mistake can wipe you out, right? This is not something. So for this is not the webinar. You can watch any video on cybersecurity practices, but it's very important. Please get this. Very, very important, because you do one mistake here, then your entire finances are in trouble. Ideally know your spouse's finances, or at least be a nominee. Make sure that you have a nominee in every single account of yours. The number of times when suddenly an adverse event like God forbid death or incapacitation happens and people are not able to get money in time, we have heard enough horror stories. So so you can also watch any video on how to do nominees correctly for all your accounts, whether it's bank, demat, everything. But this is also a non-negotiable, because any of these 2 points, if you get wrong, a large amount of money might just be stuck. So all the hard work you put into managing your money, what use is that if it's not available in time? And this is one more thing. Please be aware of your parents' finances. Parents are especially vulnerable to scams. Parents are especially vulnerable to their bank relationship manager or LIC uncle or some ULIP guy coming and selling them wrong stuff. So please take your parents into your trust circle and make sure that they are not doing some mistake with their money. And of course, estate planning if you can. All of these are very high impact items because we are looking at a large quantity of money here. And one more basic thing is, I have not seen this again. Ideally, you should read every single statement of yours related to money. At least the most important ones are, you have to read your credit card statements and bank statement, and I'll tell you why. So I'll give you a simple anecdote, right? Okay, so let me just ask random. Aparna, can I ask you a question, please? You can unmute and answer this question. Let's say you have a credit card outstanding of 1 lakh rupees, right? And you did not pay it on time. How much do you think will the penalty of this be? Dr. Aparna Digi. Sorry, I might be pronouncing it incorrectly, the second part. If you can turn on your mic and let me know. If you missed a 1 lakh payment on a credit card, how much do you think your penalty on that will be?
Hi, Abid. Thank you for the question, but I'm not very sure about that because I don't use the credit card.
Okay, I'll tell you what. This has happened to me once, right? And the number is thoda crazy. So I have a company credit card for our company, and there was some payment due. And on that exact date, some other outflow happened in the company account. I didn't realize that it had happened. The outstanding amount was roughly 5L, right? So, and for some reason, we had 4.8L in the account, but because it was not exactly 5L, the payment failed. They did not deduct 4.8L, they deducted nothing, right? And the 5L payment was missed. Next day, I found out, and on that day, I realized that that particular bank ka policy was, if you miss the payment by a day, the penalty was 28%, right? So you can do the math here. 5L ka 28% is quite a bit. It's almost 1.4L. I actually called up, so I couldn't believe this number which I saw in my credit card statement. I called the bank manager and asked, bro, are you serious? Do I have to pay 1.4 lakh? He's like, that is the policy. I'm like, and I have nobody to blame, right? It's only my fault. I could have kept a small buffer in my savings bank account. current account in this case, because the company account, for 20,000 rupees shortfall, I had to end up paying a 1.4L penalty on a 5L outstanding. So please understand the implications of not paying a credit card bill on time. I don't know what your exact bank is, but it is not some 1,000 rupee, 2,000 rupee. It's in a 20 to 30% range if you don't make a payment. In the sense that, so you can pay some minimum and do some deferring with 2% interest or something, but if you completely miss it, there's a big penalty coming your way. And that I realized this only because I had a habit of reading credit card statement, and I saw a 1.4L deduction, and I'm like, bhai ye kya ho gaya? And see, here's the problem, right? I never had that issue till 2017. I am realizing it in 2017 after starting to run a company. So that was the level of my awareness about credit cards. So there's a big problem, and nobody really bothers to tell you this, right? No bank manager is going to tell you, please sir, make sure all your payments are happening correctly, because we'll charge 30%, because it's in their interest to make this happen, right? So if you have a healthy habit of reading all your statements, whether it's bank statement, credit card statement, income tax filings, etc., it doesn't hurt to know what exactly is happening to your money. It takes like hardly 5-10 minutes every month, but this is where your money flows in and flows out. Please be in control of. Sorry, hello. No, I think that's somebody else saying something. And again, so this is important. One more thing is, I don't know why there is a, 1 second, I'll just, there is a red line for some reason. I'll try to get rid of it. Yeah. Okay, so let me just, one more thing is, so I'll just change from the slide to this thing. Get a good CA. I cannot emphasize this enough. Everybody misses this. So it's exactly like medicine or engineering or anything, right? See, 90% of the people might not know what they're doing. 10% of the people might know what they're doing. Not having a good CA is a very, very, very costly affair. If you, or let me illustrate it this way, right? The penalty in India for income tax defaults is crazy. So every month, if you miss any kind of tax payment, the penalty is between 0.5% to 1% of the outstanding, depending on what your tax is, whether it is TDS or GST, or, and in case if you're running a self practice, I'm sure there are a lot of implications on TDS and GST. We have had a lot of problems as a company. So for example, right, if you run a clinic of your own, and if you're importing something from abroad, there is something called an RCM you have to pay and then reclaim it back from the government. If you're buying something, you have to pay a 2% or 5% or X% TDS. And if you don't correctly pay the TDS, it's actually a prosecutable offense. A TDS default is a prosecutable offense. Again, I learned all of this after starting to run a company, because we were so basically we have some bill which we have to pay to a foreign vendor. We did not know what is the TDS implication of foreign vendor. We learned it the hard way. And the funny part is, 2 of our CAs which we were working with earlier missed this. They were practicing CAs with a lot of experience, and I was kind of shocked, but it happened. So please get a very good CA. I'm stressing this because you are not working for a corporate, your TDS is not cut by a company's payroll administrator. You'll have to do a lot of your own taxes, if I'm not mistaken. For self-practice, for sure, there's a lot of complex corner cases in taxes. So CAs can make mistakes. Please make sure that even if you have a CA, read it and understand what they're doing line by line. Do not outsource it. I'm stressing this because the cost of a mistake here is that you'll have 0.5% interest accumulating every year, and a penalty of 200 rupees to something else per day if you have a TDS default. So if you find out 3 years later that you had not done some TDS payment correctly to somebody for an amount of 2 lakh, it will actually come back to you as 8 lakhs, right? And I have had this experience personally. I had to pay 4 times my TDS for a mistake a CA made. So again, if you are running a clinic, if you have a practice, all of this is fairly going to come to you. So So please get a good CA and don't outsource it. And if you can afford it, get a good financial advisor. I'm stressing good because in my experience, every time I talk to 10 advisors, 1 or 2 of them are really good. So like just before this webinar, I was getting feedback on this presentation from my friends in Zerodha, and they were telling me, "Hey boss, it's like you have to date your financial advisor, treat it like that. You're going to get married to that guy practically. So make sure that that person knows everything inside out and don't check his work from another person, right? It is that level of compliance which people are. And in fact, I'll suggest one more thing. There are plenty of tools which are available for tax calculations, etc. Even if you upload all your stuff to an automatic tool, just to double check your CA's work, it can give you more confidence on whether your CA is doing the right stuff or not, right? So these are some of the basics. Now that we are completely out of the basics territory, we'll start with actual investment, deployment, everything, right? So far we talked about getting a good CA, knowing your finances. First thing which we talked about is don't bother too much if you're not in the stage of life with significant money to deploy your wealth. The second thing which we talked about is always know your finances, be in control, know your finances, protect them very well, know your spouse's finances, get your parents' finances, read all your statements, etc., etc. Get a great CA. So the first thing, right, the most important thing which finances, yes, I'll send a list of resources after this to Dr. Shilpa, which are some of the links where you can learn tools to calculate taxes, etc. And also investment advisor, also an insurance advisory free service. I'm not promoting anything. In fact, at the end of this tool, I'm going to ask all of you to not use my product because I have severe conflicts with people trading F&O, and I don't think people should trade F&O. But so no promotions, but I will give some useful resources where you can find tools for your taxes. Now comes emergency funds, right? The first thing which personal finance starts with is emergency funds, and the thumb rule of emergency funds is that you have to have at least 6 months of expenses in emergency funds set aside, right? 6 months of your expenses should be in an emergency fund. But the question is, where do you put this emergency fund, right? So you can't put emergency fund in equity or mutual fund or something, because if there's a correction. So let's put it this way, right? During the time of COVID went equity corrected like 30-40%. Now if you're suddenly needing money, you'll have to sell your investments when it is down 30%. That's not a nice thing. So you can't keep emergency funds in something that fluctuates a lot. Realistically, there are 3 places where you can put your emergency fund. One is your bank savings account, the other is bank FD, the third is liquid mutual fund, right? So I'll come to it. Savings, everybody knows, there's no question at all. The only problem with savings is it only gives you 3.5% return. But the good thing is that it is immediately available from an ATM without doing anything. The second thing, of course, is bank FDs, which again you understand, this is also immediately available for all practical purposes. It's just that you have to log into their website and place a close FD request, and that is the time which is needed, right? And there's a small penalty of 1% if you prematurely close an FD. The third thing is liquid mutual fund. This is technically the best option out of this, but the only problem is if you put money in a liquid mutual fund, right? So you can learn what these things are. It just takes one Google search. The only problem with the liquid mutual fund is it will take 1 day to get it. So if you say I want the money today, you can only get it on the next working day. So technically it's not available on an emergency. If you have an emergency on Friday, you'll only get it. So on Friday night, if you have an emergency, you'll place a redemption request that will be processed Monday, and your money will hit only Tuesday or Wednesday. So liquid mutual fund or emergency, I wouldn't really recommend. But if you want to park some money, it's a good idea to put it in a liquid mutual fund. It gives higher return than savings or bank FD. So to give you a perspective, bank savings gives you around 3.5-3% return. Bank FDs for a short tenor gives you 4 to 5%. Long term gives you 7%, 1 year or above. Liquid mutual fund, at least in the last few years, we have noticed has given around 6 to 7%, and that has been consistently above bank savings and bank FDs. Of course, this is a high interest rate environment, but so if I were you, I'd probably try to split between if my liquid emergency fund is, let's say, 6 lakhs, I'll keep 2 lakh in savings, 2 lakh in FD, and 2 lakh in liquid mutual fund, right? So at least I have 66% of my emergency fund available within 1 day, actually instantly. So if it's a bank FD, I need to log into my account, break it, and immediately go to ATM, withdraw it. If it's savings, I don't even need to do that. So I'll probably split it between these three. This is the emergency fund rule. Ideally, we should all have 6 months of emergency funds. I mean, when we are younger, that thing is called parents, but now it is us. So emergency fund has to be in our bank account. So that's the starting of personal finance. This is the first point of where to deploy money. Once you have this thing, sometimes even before you have this thing, super important thing is get a health and term insurance. Nothing else. Health insurance 1, term insurance 2, and do not under any circumstance mix insurance with investment. See, every scam in investing happens because people sell insurance plus. They say insurance plus investment, insurance plus return, insurance plus some fixed balance, insurance plus some retirement cash flow. See, in financial world, right? So the thing is this, right? This is the only thing I've done in my life, except a couple of years when I was an advisor to some startup incubator. Like my first job was a trader, my second job was a trader, my third job was a trader. I worked inside banks all my growing up years. The one thing I know is that banks make complex products just to scam people. The complexity is where they hide the margin. So if you see anything which is not plain vanilla, please assume it's a scam. In fact, every time, so I have a relationship manager in the bank, this guy calls me and tells me, "Ki, sir, new product is coming. I tell him, "Ki, bro, listen, I used to work in your treasury before. Why are you doing this with me? At least spare me, no." And this guy is like, "Okay, sorry." He cuts, and I'm serious. He actually cuts the call after apologizing. When I tell him that, I used to work in your system. So if you're buying an insurance, buy insurance, the simplest possible insurance, which is a plain health insurance. If they say this is insurance plus some investment, it's a scam. If they say insurance plus some cash flow at the end, it is scam. They say insurance plus endowment, it's a scam. And I am not exaggerating when it's a scam. Any complex insurance product is something which insurance companies have designed to rip off money from people because they don't understand what is happening underneath it, right? So get a good term plan, get a good health plan. And your term insurance should be 30x your expenses, the cover. Health plan depends on you. Ideally, if you can, get a health plan which also gives you foreign treatment options. That's great. And if you're working with a corporate hospital or something, if they have a corporate insurance provider, if there's a top-up option available, please do the top-up. It's completely worth it. For some 5-6K extra premium, the top-up gives you a plus 20L cover. So please get a health plan. Very important. These are the only two things needed. Anything else, right? ULIP, endowment, YEVO, anything, that's all a scam. So if a bank is selling it to you, please stay away from it. If an advisor is selling it to you, please stay away from it. Also stay away from ULIPs and endowments. Everybody knows ULIPs and endowments are bad ideas. At least in financial world, I don't know a single person who works in finance who has a ULIP plan with that person. For example, I was talking to, so 2 weeks back, I was going for a high school reunion. Friend of mine said, "Ki ULIP matured 10 years. I asked him, "How much did you get?" He like 2 times the money. I'm like, "Boss, in Nifty, you would have made 4 times the money. Even in real estate, you would have made 3 times the money. In gold, you would have made 5 times the money. Basically, in FD also, you would make more than 2 times the money if you had put it in FD, right?" So anything which is complex, if you want insurance, just get a health insurance and term insurance. 2 separate plans, nothing else. They say anything else, say no to that. I mean, this is a very, very important thing. I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but every time I talk to people, I'm surprised by how many people take an insurance plan which is sold to them by somebody which also has an extra benefit. That extra benefit is just margin to the banks or insurance companies. Please don't fall for it. Insurance is a simple product. Just get a term insurance, health insurance. Aishwarya is asking, what is term insurance? Term insurance, Aishwarya, is basically if something happens to me, money goes to my family, right? Like life insurance. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Shilpa, for clarifying that. Life insurance is term insurance because it's for a term till you're 65 or till you're 85. Now comes loans. So again, I've seen a lot of people in my company make this mistake. They'll have loans of 12%, 13% or something. They keep that while investing into other things. So if you have any loan which is about 10% and you're investing instead of paying back the loan, it doesn't make sense for a simple reason. Because see, if you're investing somewhere, it is, even if it's a long-term capital gain, it is chargeable at 10%. If it is short-term, it is chargeable at 13%. Sorry, 30%. So if you are thinking that I'll rather invest this money than pay back my loan, you're assuming that there is some source of income that gives you 11% at least assured income every year or 13% every year. Yeah, Ramesh, Dr. Rameshwari, SBI Smart Privilege is a. So I will not take any brand names, but I think there is. Can you mute everyone? I think there's some interference happening. I don't know whose mic is it. I think Dr. Shilpa can probably mass mute everybody. So, Dr. Tony is asking, term insurance should be renewed every year. The premium should be paid every year, and you should not let it lapse. You have to renew it and keep it alive every year. So see, like Dr. Rameshwari is saying, SBI Smart Privilege Scheme is insurance with option of investing in MFs. Ideally, it should not have an option of anything, right? I mean, I'm not taking the brand, but anything which says it has the option of investing in mutual fund, there is. So if you want to invest in mutual fund, invest that separately. Don't mix the two. Your bank is taking the margin. And if you just search for investment, any Google search 101 will tell you you should never mix the two. So coming to loans, pay back everything before you invest in anything, especially if they are high interest loans. If you work for a corporate, especially if you work for a corporate, this is important. You can refinance your existing loan. So for example, in our company, anybody who has a loan, we happily give 0 interest loan to our teammates. So what we do is, so for example, one of our colleagues had a gold loan at 20%. We gave him a loan at 0% interest as a company. And basically he pays back that and we deduct it from a salary over a long time or something, right? If you're working with a corporate, most corporates have some kind of an employee loan program. If they don't have one, they'll be very happy to give it if you think you're somebody who they want to retain. So please figure out if your employer, if you're working with a corporate setup, has a even if you don't find this, there are ways to refinance loans at lower interest. Please explore these options. The only exception to this is there is I think
I'm sorry, sir.
no worries. So the only thing you can keep is you can keep your home loan, right? Because it has a tax benefit. So except your home loan, which has a tax benefit under the older regime, it does not make sense to keep any loan, especially if it's a high interest loan. 10%, 11% loan, don't even think of investing anything before you pay that off. It does not make sense because nothing in the long run gives you 11% return post tax, right? So pay it off first. And also, why have the tension of a compounding loan? I'm saying this because I have had an educational loan for my postgrad, and my God, yeah, Dr. Nandish is asking education loan. It depends. This is a question which I don't have a clear answer to because it depends on what is your percentage at which you borrowed. If the percentage borrowing is more than 10%, so when I had my education loan, it started at 8.25%. At 8.25%, it could go either ways with the tax slab, benefit also. But if it's at a higher interest rate, probably it's a good thing to pay that off first before investing.
Are you watching one?
So then comes credit card. Please never have credit card loans. The terminal interest rate of a credit card loan can be as high as 48%. Under no universe does a credit card interest loan make sense. If you have a credit card loan, even if you borrow personal loan and pay it off, it's fine. Like if you have a credit card loan, get personal loan at 15%, pay off the credit card loan. Credit card loans are like straight away taking a knife and cutting your jugular vein. It is draining your blood completely. So don't keep one. now finally comes the highlight of whatever we are here for. But I thought we should cover these first, because the foundation doesn't come till we clear off our loans and we have health insurance, and we have, because unless we have emergency funds, unless we have health and term insurance, unless we pay off our loans, it doesn't make sense to actively invest, right? And now we come to our investments. So the first thing, again, I learned it from my wife, is if you have money in your savings bank, please make a habit of moving it to somewhere, right? There are two good things it does. One is, if you move it into an investment account, it prevents you from spending it out of impulse. The second thing, of course, it starts working. So 3.5% interest. So let's say you have 10 lakhs in your account, it gives 3.5% in a savings bank versus you move it even into a long-term FD or a mutual fund, it gives you 7%. And I'm talking about debt mutual fund. I'm not talking about equity, because equity can give you negative also. Even if you move it into a debt mutual fund, it gives you around 7%. In a government security, risk-free, which is because governments don't default, and if governments default, we have other problems to talk about. A Government of India bond right now gives you a 7%. At 3.5% interest differential, that is straight away 35,000 rupees. So if you keep 10 lakhs in your savings account versus 10 lakh in a bond, a mutual fund, and I'll explain what is this government bond mutual fund. Your differential every year is 35,000 rupees. That's a significant amount of money. Even post-tax, that's like 25,000 rupees, even if you're at the highest tax slab. So the moment you have money in your savings bank, please move it into an investment account. I'm saying this because, every month I do this here at home, push, please move it into something. Don't keep it in your savings account. So you have to move it. It's a habit, which is a good habit. It prevents you from splash spending. It also makes your money work hard every time, and it takes hardly it takes 5 minutes literally to move money from your savings account to even a debt mutual fund, equity in case you're doing equity, right? But here's the important thing, right? You have to be very clear on why are you doing all this, and this totally depends on your stage of life. Why are you doing this? Are you trying to create wealth or preserve wealth, right? The investment objective. And the answer to that often lies in our age. So if you're in your early 20s, the only purpose you have is wealth creation. Beat inflation, have a retirement corpus, and gift to your children, grandchildren, etc. expensive lifestyle, blah, blah, blah. But if you're hitting 50s, 60s, then you also have to preserve whatever you have made, and you can't be in 100% small cap at that stage of your life, right? So a good idea is, if your age is, let's say 30 or 40, your 40% money can be in safer investments. I'm just giving bonds as an example. So if you're 50 years old, ideally 50% of your portfolio should be in bonds. If you're 60 years old, 60% of your portfolio should be in bonds, FD, etc. If you're 20 years old, you can be 100% equity also, it's fine. This is a rough guideline. But at the stage where your only objective is create more and more and more wealth, you can put money in assets which have risks, such as equities, stocks, etc. But as you mature more and more, so if I'm 20, I'll have 100% stocks, 0% FD. When I'm 50, I might have 50% FD, 50% stocks, right? So this is, so early on when you're wealth creating, just tell yourself, okay, my objective is wealth creation. I'm not trying to preserve anything. I'll take very growth oriented investments and I'll keep on doing it for the rest of my life. But somewhere towards 40 or 50 or something, you have to tell yourself, okay, boss, enough is enough. I'm going to now focus on preserving whatever I've made. Right now comes portfolio mix. Portfolio mix is very standard. One is equity, which is stocks. Then comes fixed income, and I'm using this term fixed income to represent two things. One is fixed deposit, the other is bonds. We'll explain what this is soon. But at a very basic level, it's something that gives you a fixed cash flow every month, right, in terms of interest. Then comes gold, which of course Dr. Shilpa was telling me everybody is exposed to in the current scenario, especially in the doctor community, which I also kind of see around me. And then comes real estate. I'm putting a question mark there because I don't know if it's an investment, if it's an asset, or if it's a utility. People look at it differently. But basically, your portfolio should be all of this. Now, equities. So three of them are growth assets. Equity is for growth. Gold is generally for growth because it is inflation protection. Like when prices of things go up, gold price also goes up. So both of these grow over time, over long term. In fact, gold is the only asset in the world that has given a positive return over the last 400 years, right? So from 1600 AD to now, the only thing that has given positive return is gold. Everything else has had problem. Then comes real estate. We'll talk about this later, but for now I'll park it aside. But we'll focus on these three things, right? Because these are going to be most of the investments for most of the people. We'll focus on these three: equities, fixed income, which is a mixture of government bonds and fixed deposit. Then comes gold. Now let's focus on and we have to. So there is an allocation percentage. It will be something like 60 40 60 20 20 or something like 50 30 20, or typically it is 50 30 20 or something. And you have to make sure that you balance this every year. You have to make sure that this is roughly the same percentage. The reason why I'm saying this is sometimes it can happen that you started with 50 rupees in gold, 50 rupees in equity and 50 rupees in bond. 1 year later, you'll realize that 50 rupees in equity has become 100, bond is 60. So now you have to change the number again. So which is why I'm saying rebalance, but it's okay, that we can come to later. The important point is, ideally everybody should have a mixture of these three in their portfolio, right? Because you can't be 100% equity, because if a crash comes, we are toasted. We can't be 100% fixed income because fixed income only gives 7% every year max, right? It will not beat inflation. Like a house in Kozhikode, where I'm from, was worth probably around 30 lakhs in 2010. The same house is at 1.5 crore now. So by investing in bonds, nobody could have grown their wealth, right? So ideally, you should have all of this. Equity is the only thing that grows really ultra long term. Gold is the thing that protects you from a lot of problems in life. And fixed income is something that gives you preservation of whatever you have made. And like I said, right, early on, more equity and gold, later on, less equity and gold and more fixed income, right? So now let's zoom in on one thing, which is equity. Equity is basically stocks. I mean, it's a fancy way of saying stocks. And it's the only thing that works in the really, really long term, especially in growing economies with inflation like India, right? I mean, of course, there are countries where equity has gone down in 20 years. Japan is a classic exception. But these are exceptions. In general, it is almost always a bad idea to not invest in equities, because nothing else is going to beat inflation. Gold might beat inflation marginally, but if you look at this in a longer term, right, 20, 30, 40 years, it is borderline suicidal not to invest in equity. You have to invest in equity. The question is how, which is where I'll give an interesting data point. So the data point is, there are two things through which you can invest. Either do direct mutual funds. Direct mutual fund is basically, you don't buy it from an agent, you don't buy it from a bank, because those have commission, 1%, 2% type, they take commission. The other is, you can do ETF, which is through a demat account. It's an exchange traded fund. It's just like mutual fund. I would slightly prefer this because this is simpler, no complication. You can put money in a direct mutual fund which invests in stocks, right? Which invests in nifty stocks, whatever. The important thing here to realize is that see, it does not really matter which mutual fund you pick. Don't worry too much about which brand and which this thing and all that. Almost all of them give similar returns. If you see that some mutual fund has done very well in the last 5 years, it does not mean somebody else will not outperform in the next 5 years. Pick anything, it's fine. If you want to split, you can split between 2-3 funds. But this is the most important thing. You have to have a stock mutual fund direct portfolio. Please never do the other thing, because it's only 1-2% that they say they'll charge as commission. But let me put it this way, right? If I have a 50 lakh portfolio, right, and if the other person who's my equity advisor or mutual fund distributor or whoever takes 1% from me, right, every year. Now, if I gave him 50 lakh and it grew over time to 1 crore, and let's say it took 20 years to do that. Now you have to understand that even if you take 50 lakh as the base, he has actually earned 5 lakhs from me over the last 10 years. And if you're doing 20 years, it is 10 lakhs. So basically 20% of your wealth was captured by a person for doing what? Nothing, because just being a mutual distributor. So it's a lot of money. 20% of your net worth over 20 years is not something you should gift anybody. So please learn about direct mutual funds. Anything which is an indirect mutual fund or something which people say, your bank calls you and tells you, sir, put money in a mutual fund, or your advisor gives you, they are not direct mutual funds. They'll have 1 to 2% commission. Even at 1% commission, I'm telling you, in 20 years, you'll transfer 20% of your wealth to the other person. At 2%, it is, if you do the math, it's 40%. So let's not do that. I don't know why the other mutual fund even exists. It's crazy, but because mutual funds grow so much, people don't mind that 1% going, but it's a lot of money in the long term. So if you are putting money in mutual funds, it has to be through direct. Please don't do the other thing. Commissions will eat you up. So that's number one. The second question is, how do you split it? Now, usually there are large cap mutual funds, there are small cap mutual funds, and mid cap ETF, like mutual fund or ETF or whichever. Again, large cap are big companies like Reliance and Tata Consultancy and Infosys and Wipro and Coal India and etc. etc. Large companies, they're very stable. Mid cap companies are smaller, all these biocons etc. somewhat aggressive, and then there are small cap companies we have not heard of, which have very high growth potential. Now, with growth comes risk. So ideally, you should have some exposure to everything. If you can't decide how to split it, split equally. If you have 1 lakh, put 33,000 in large cap ETF, put 33,000 in small cap, put 33,000 in mid cap, right? I mean, with this, if you go to any mutual fund platform, you can search these words. So not ETF, MF, not ETF, sorry, mutual fund. You can search anywhere, you will find it. I don't want to, because it will be like if I open a mutual fund platform, it might be misrepresented as something else. So, but basically you can do it in your own platform. Just pick 3-4 direct mutual funds, large cap, mid cap, small cap, split it equally. That's it. Forget it. Nothing else to do. Your equity portfolio is complete. Every year, once in a year, look at it and set up an SIP if you want, which is systematic investor plan. Every month, money will be deducted from your bank to the mutual fund. But this is simple. This is very simple. This is all you need to do. So I'm again reiterating, all you need to do in equity investment is pick 3-4 mutual funds, make some way SIP to directly put money into it every month, and forget it. There's nothing else. Anything else which you're doing is in fact a wrong thing, which I'll explain. So see, the thing is this, right? So I'll share one story. The most successful people, investors in USA, right? So there's a company in US called Vanguard. It's the largest mutual fund company in the world. They did a survey on who are their most profitable investors. And does anyone want to guess on chat who are their most profitable investors? Who are the most profitable investors in USA? Dr. Rameshwari is asking lump sum or SIP. Praful is saying Buffett is the most. No, it's a group of people. There's a group of people who are the most profitable investors in USA. Like Satyapriya Balasubramanian is saying index fund investors. So the answer is dead people. The most successful investors in US history are dead people. What happens is that people, 60s, 70s generation of Americans buy stocks, forget it, they pass away, nobody remembers. After some 10 years, there's some custodian, there's some custodian or somebody whose job it is to remind the inheritors ki boss, your father has this portfolio, please take it. So, and then the kids discover that, oh wait, our father had so much stocks, he didn't sell it, and this would be like 5x, 10x, 20x, 100x of the original investment. I'll give you one more interesting story, right? I have a friend, her father-in-law expired 2017 or 18, and while they were clearing out his belongings, they found a box in which there were some shares of Tata Steel. right? And because for some reason I was her go-to person for investment, she sent a photograph to me and asked, Miki boss, I found this. Do you know how much this is worth? So because these are physical share certificates in paper of 1990s, early 1990s, I had to do quite a bit of math with share split, dividend, bonus issues, EAO, etc. But at the end of it, the number came to something like 6.5 crores or 3.5 crores or something. And I was like, my God, why didn't my grandfather do this thing? Like basically, he just bought it, forgot it, right? And nobody remembered it. It was lying in a box under his bed for like 25, 30 years. 2016, that's like 21 years, right? And basically, the grandchildren are now enjoying the benefits of that. You should have this approach to equity. Don't actively try to trade. Don't get in, get out. Just buy it, forget it. The attitude we should have towards equity is it's not for us, it is to buy a silver color sport car for our grandkids, right? And just buy, hold, forget. In the long run it'll be fine. In the long run, if it's not fine, it means the country has not grown, right? And if in a scenario the country has not grown, we have a very different set of problems to talk about, right? Our jobs are in danger, our everything is in danger, right? So we can't plan for that world. Anyway, we have the plan because 30% of our money anyway is in FDs and all. But otherwise, just put the SIP, invest in index, forget it. In the long run, your grandchildren will say, Dadaji or Dadiji was a very nice person. Thank you very much, right? And also, I'm guessing people will be asking, why am I not suggesting direct stocks? So here's an interesting data point again. Not a single hedge fund manager anywhere in the world has beaten an index in the long run. In fact, Warren Buffett put out a bet with all the fund managers of the world a few years back, asking anybody beats an index, I give them $250,000. A lot of people took the challenge. Nobody won, and they had to give Warren $250,000 for a charity which Warren was supporting, Girl Scouts or something. But it's impossible to beat an index. I have not found too many people who have beaten an index. It is less headache. It's simple. 99% of the fund managers don't beat an index. So then why are we trying to compete when it's not even our main role, right? Index beats almost everyone. Index beats fund managers. So then index will beat retail investor hands down. So also direct equity investing is something which is a complex process. People can lose a lot of money. The worst thing which can come out of it is it can become a massive distraction from your main business, which is your practice or your clinic or your job or whichever it is. And then it can become a trading addiction. Your time is much more valuable than that. I do a lot of work with traders to rehab them from trading addiction. Direct stock, if you ask me what is the biggest risk of directly buying stocks like Tata Steel, some friend told buy Adani, it will go up. The problem with all of this is that you might put some money, which is a small part of your portfolio, and generate maybe like some percent. Maybe even if you invest like half your money and make double return on that, it is still sorry, if take 10% return on that, it is only like 3-4% after tax, right? It's not worth the time and headache. So ETF all the way or mutual fund all the way, direct mutual fund, it's not worth it to do direct stocks. Just buy it, forget it. That's very simple thing, but I don't see people doing it again. And if you have an itch, and I understand that a lot of people like this, they have a hobby, side business or whatever. If you have an itch, open a very tiny account, like some, less than 1% of your net worth kind of an account, just to do all your hobby stuff if you want, right? But please don't make a business out of trading or stock picking. And again, I know it sounds very preachy, but data of roughly 2.5 crore people can speak for this, and it's very difficult to negate this when I'm seeing data from 25% of India's invested demat accounts that nobody has really beaten an index. It was not really worth it. Now comes fixed income. I think maybe we have 10-15 minutes more. So this is very simple. There are two kinds of FDs. One is bank FD, and maybe there is a regular bank, all your SBI, ICICI, etc. The other thing is small finance banks. They give you higher interest, right? Now, I have seen a lot of people putting money in small finance banks because it gives 1% or 1.5% more. But here's the catch. FDs are protected by RBI only up to 5 lakhs. So if you put 1 crore in a small finance bank, if that small finance bank collapses, you'll only get 5 lakh back. See, why do we have FD? Because we want to protect our wealth. If our objective is to protect our wealth, what is the funda of earning that extra 1%, right? I mean, that's like, see, if you want to make it big, go put money in equity, right? Because it might give you 11-12% over the long run. If you want to make it very safe, put it in a uncollapsible place where your money is fully guaranteed. What is this small finance bank FD? It's like, okay, you will get 9%. So I tell myself, here, I want to protect this money. If this something happens to a small finance bank, I'm totally gone. And it has happened in a couple of times in Maharashtra and all, where cooperative banks collapsed. I don't want to earn 1.5% extra return, which is actually 0.7% post-tax or 0.8% post-tax on something which I want to preserve, right? So if a small finance bank is giving you 1.5% extra return or 1% extra return, if you're in the highest tax slab, you're only making 0.6% more. Do you want to risk your money for 0.6? I don't want to. So I would not want to do this. I have no business investing in a small finance bank FD. So I'll completely strike this off. Now comes regular bank FD. Now here's the problem. Regular bank FD also is only guaranteed up to 5L, right? Because if, I mean, technically, if you put money in a Kotak Mahindra bank or an ICICI bank, if tomorrow something happens to them, and let me be real, right? In 2008, I don't know how many people really know this. ICICI Bank almost had a bank run. I know this because I was working in the team that caused the bank run. Basically, we had sold some CDS in subprime prices to AIG, and bank had an overnight margin call of 350 crores from some US party. Hey, I don't think they talk about these things, very classified information. If you dig deep into RBI archives, you might find proof for it. But basically, if an Indian bank, see, banks have collapsed in the US. Last year, for example, around 5 small banks collapsed in the US. This year, one bank already collapsed in the US. So, if you have 1 crore in ICICI or HDFC or Kotak, theoretically, it's only protected up to 5L. I mean, there's no, I mean, yes, I know we don't live in a world where SBI, ICICI, HDFC will collapse. It won't collapse, right? Because the government won't let it happen. But if you're looking at all your life savings and putting it in an FD, 30% of it, I would say a better idea is to put in government bonds, right? And so this you can, so I've actually done a webinar on how to invest in government bonds. I'll share that link with Dr. Shilpa after this. That's a half-an-hour webinar on how to put money in government bonds. But this is the safest form of investment you can put. Basically, it's a guarantee by the government of India that, boss, I'm going to give you back my money, right? Again, you can do it in 2 ways. Either you can directly invest in bonds through RBI retail. There's something called RBI retail, but it's very messy. It's very complex. Again, you'll have to do a lot of circus with your CA to correctly pay taxes on interest. The easiest way is there are mutual funds that invest in government bonds. They are called gilt funds, GILT. So if you search about them, you will see plenty of them. And I'll also share a link which is a detailed webinar on this government bonds. This is the safe, basically this is a guarantee from the government of India that your money plus your interest will come back. Again, technically governments can default. In the history of the world, only one major government has defaulted in the last 100 years. That was Russia in 1990 during the ruble collapse, 1991 or something. It blew up a hedge fund in US for $4.1 billion. It was the greatest collapse of all time. But except this Russian government bond default, no big government has ever defaulted in the history. And let me put it this way, right? If government defaults, your banks already probably have defaulted 6 months earlier. So this is the safest. Basically, Indian government says, we'll see if government runs out of money, they can print more money and give it to you. This is the basic logic of this. This is the safest form of investment. So if you have the 20%, 30%, whatever percent you're trying to put it in, something which gives you a periodic interest every month, the safest thing right now is government bonds. Indian government bonds are giving slightly above 7% right now. And interestingly, it's above FDs. And, or let me put it this way, right? It's almost a no-brainer to invest if you are investing in fixed income, which is bonds, right? Or something that gives you periodic interest. It doesn't make sense to invest in anything other than government bonds because it is the only thing which is truly guaranteed. It is giving 7%. It's actually giving more than bank FDs. It's giving less than private bonds, but again, private bonds are risky. In fact, I'll give you one more tip. If anybody says they are giving you 11 to 12% interest, please stay away from it because last 6 months there were at least 3 collapses of things that promised like 18% return. There was an alternative investment platform. I don't want to take names, but they used to do inventory financing at 18%, and 3-4 companies defaulted. Investors lost money, no recourse. I mean, it's gone. Like, so again, your objective of storing it in bonds is to keep your money safe. It doesn't make sense to then keep it in anything other than the safest place, which is government bond, right? So we are done with equity, we are done with fixed income. Last big point is gold. So no matter what, digital gold is a bad idea, right? There is something which is being peddled called digital gold. It is a very bad idea for multiple reasons. One is it has a GST of 3%. The other thing is if you convert it into, so digital gold is basically, there are 3 companies which offer you digital gold. You pay the money. They say that, okay, now we'll keep gold in a locker for you. And whenever you want, we'll give it to you as physical form. If you don't want, we'll keep money, and that gold is with us. And at the end of it, you can either redeem your gold and we'll give you back money, or you can redeem your gold, we'll give you back the gold. The problem with this is it has a GST of 3%. If you convert it, they'll charge making charge. The other big problem is you might buy gold for 100 rupees. You can sell it only for 97. So there's a 3% spread also, typically 2 to 3% spread. So you lose like 6% straight away the moment you buy this thing, right? And the biggest problem is the platforms that give you digital gold in India right now, none of them are regulated by RBI, SEBI or CFTC or any of these bodies. If tomorrow they say, listen, sorry, our making charge from now on is 8%, there's nobody you can't go anywhere, right? Because it's like buyer beware, right? So if you look at stocks, it's regulated by SEBI. If you look at bonds, it is regulated by RBI of India. If you look at FD, it is regulated by RBI. Digital gold is an unregulated market. I have only heard scary stories of people losing at least 6%. Or let me put it this way, right? The moment you enter, you have already lost 6%. So I don't know how that makes sense. There are only 3 companies. I can't take names, but this is 3 companies. Then comes physical gold. So this is a very interesting thing. So if you have jewelry is an emotional need. There's no investment associated with that. There is a GST of 3%, and then there are making charges, but it's okay. If you want to buy jewelry, you buy jewelry. I mean, it's like you can't always look at everything as investment and utility, right? So this is another way. I'll also tell one interesting point here. See, at the end of the day, when things go extremely wrong, no electronic investment might save you. And there are many precedents in history. Of course, we don't live in a country like that. But in 1930s, Jews escaped from Germany only because they had physical gold with them. In 1990s, a lot of people from Eastern European countries, when there was that Yugoslavia crisis, or even 1990s, West Germany, East Germany, 1950s, Korea, all of these war zones, people escape. I mean, when there is tremendous problem, or let's say you have a tax audit or something, you did something wrong and you want to escape. You cannot take your electronic investment because they'll be frozen before you can escape. So as an extremely paranoid person, I would always say some part of your money you should have as physical gold bars, not as jewelry, not as anything else, but as gold bars. So that's one. Gold bar is one side thing. And then comes the next best thing. Or second best thing to invest in gold is gold ETF. That again you can search in your Demat account for gold ETF, and you'll see plenty of options. But these are all secondary. We'll come to the most important thing, which is sovereign gold bond issued by the Reserve Bank of India. Sovereign gold bond is a no-brainer option when it comes to investing in gold because it has 0 charges, right? Like if you invest in digital gold, there's some platform fee, there's some GST, there is some making charge, there's some spread, etc. Physical gold, there is some GST making charge, there's a pain of going to the place. Then there is an issue of purity, who knows what they are selling. Sovereign gold bond is basically a promissory guarantee from RBI saying, boss, you buy this is this much gold. When you come back and sell this, we'll give you that much gold ka money. There is no charge, and if you hold it for 5 to 8 years, right? 8 years is the cycle of a sovereign gold bond. But anything, if you hold it for 5 years or more, you don't have to pay capital gain tax. A gold ETF, you have to pay capital gain tax at your tax slab. So if you're at a 30% slab, if you bought 100 rupees worth gold ETF, and if that becomes 300 rupees 8 years later, you have to pay 60 rupees if you're in the highest tax slab, 30% tax slab. So that leaves you with 240. But if you put money in sovereign gold bond, if it is 100 to start with, it becomes 300. You get actually 300 rupees. This is a crazy no-brainer idea. In fact, there is no logic to not invest money in a gold bond. In fact, if you are putting money in gold, it has to be in a sovereign gold bond. Yes, there is one thing that it is not actual gold. It is government saying that we have kept aside gold for you. So if you have some extreme paranoia like here, what will happen if there is China invades India or some war breaks out or some financial crisis happens? Yes, all of those scenarios, there can be problems. But again, those are extreme scenarios. But it's an RBI guarantee in all 99.99% of the world. This is the best way to invest in gold. In that 0.01% where everything goes wrong, you should have physical gold. But practically your gold exposure has to be in sovereign gold bond. And if any of these reasons are not enough for you to pull the trigger on sovereign gold bond, then the extra thing is it also gives you 2.5% interest a year. So basically no charge, no GST, no capital gain tax, and 2.5% interest every year. This is if you are planning to invest in gold for long term, it is very, 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 very difficult to say no to a sovereign gold bond. Basically, Government of India is a sovereign, RBI is the issuer. This is the government guarantee on bonds, right? So if you like gold investment, it's the simplest thing, no brainer, sovereign gold bond. Everything else, there can be some nuance, small cap ETF, large cap ETF, government bond, fixed long-term bond, short-term bond, or should be this, that. Gold, always a single answer, RBI sovereign gold bonds. It's available in every broking platform. You can just search for SGB, you will find plenty of links, right? Now, somebody asked a question, so I'll answer that here. Deploying a lump sum versus SIP. See, normally, from a psychological perspective at least, it is a better idea. So if you, let's say you end up you suddenly get a payout of 50L, I would be very tempted to break it in 12 parts or 24 parts and invest it every month into whatever I am investing in so that I get an average price. So see, there is mathematical argument that lump sum may be better in some times, but generally from a psychological perspective, for peace of mind, it's better to deploy it over time at an average, right? So I mean, but this is up to you. So this is just to answer the question, but generally, if you do lump sum, in a growing economy, it's always lump sum, no-brainer. But if you think that the stock markets can crash or something can happen, it's always better to do an average cost, right? Last slide of today. I don't know if we have exceeded the time. I don't know how much was the time to begin with. So my last points, I always do this customary thing of taking like a kuladi and putting it on my own foot. Please don't get into trading if you are in an early stage of your career. See, trading is very nice if I mean, so a lot of people have asked me, right, what's your use case for trading? And my answer always has been that if you're really bored in life, if your midlife crisis has hit, probably it's not a bad idea to have some entertainment. And FTO, trading, etc., are things which require full-time focus, a lot of time and energy. There is also significant amount of anxiety, stress, etc. A lot of people might induce you into trading, and I'll tell 2 horror stories which happened to medical community in Kerala, trading related. So please don't get into this. This is super important, and I'll tell you why I'm repeatedly saying this. The number of people who have lost money by giving their money for somebody else to manage is crazy, right? So if possible, please don't give money to someone else to manage, no matter what kind of returns they promise. I work with regulators and exchanges on a lot of these issues. The number of, see, it all goes well till one day it goes away. So I'll give you an interesting story, right? So again, 2 weeks back, I was in my hometown for a high school reunion, and my school best friend is a doctor in this hospital called Maitra in Kozhikode. And he was asking me opinion about, should I invest in this thing which somebody else is coming and saying, you will make 30% return, something. So I think last year in Kochi in Kerala, there was a scam where a couple collected money from professionals, mostly doctors, to deploy money in some equity mutual fund, etc. And they had run away to Dubai or something with 200 crores, right? And now nobody has no recourse because, see, technically regulator can't act against it because it's illegal to manage somebody else's money. So if you go to a police station or something, they'll say, boss, aapko kisne bola to give money. But anyway, this happens. So what the story I was saying is, so he asked me this question and I wanted to show him this story of 200 crore ka scam which happened in Kerala. And I searched in Google 200 crore scam story Kerala. And the funny part is, I was looking for this 200 crore scam that happened last year. Turns out the Google search came with a new story, 200 crores that happened like 2 months back. So in a span of 8 months, 200 crore money management scam happened in the same district of the same state, or probably it was in the other district, but same state, 200 crore stories. Lot of money came from working professionals, doctors, engineers, etc. And people ran away. The problem is, if somebody says ki we are running a PMS, which is the post portfolio management service, it is mostly unregulated. In India, technically, nobody can trade on your behalf on F&O. People can manage your money in a portfolio management service with equity and all, only if they have a license. But otherwise, if you give money to somebody else and they go missing, there's no legal recourse in India. So please stay away from this. I know it seems very basic, but I know tons of people who do this. And like I know a lot of, so I had a friend who went to ISB, Indian School of Business. That person gave around 1 crore to somebody who was buying options as a portfolio management service, and this person sinks like 50-60 lakhs, and I'm like, how could you do this, right? And it came from a person who's probably studied in what is probably the second or third best business school in India. That's crazy, right? But it happens. The other thing, of course, is Demat account. A lot of people say ki I'll do trading from your Demat account, money stays in. This is also a scam. I'm saying this because we in stock markets now, this practice is becoming extremely common. We are sick of getting complaints from investors who are writing to SEBI ki ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya, paisa gaya. So this is this. And one more very important message. This is like very critical. See, if somebody is selling something to you, normally when it's like a car or when it's a fridge or when it's a I don't know, dog food or something, it's fine. But no good financial product will ever be sold, right? I can't stress this enough. What is the best investment product in gold? By far, gold has a clear answer. Sovereign gold bond issued by Government of India and RBI. Has anybody tried to sell? Has your financial advisor, has your bank ka relationship manager, has your insurance agent, anybody even mentioned this SGB word to you? I'll be very surprised if, has anyone sold you sovereign gold bond? Has anyone asked you, I'll invest it in sovereign gold bond on your behalf? Has any advisor given you this word ever? Like, you can reply in chat. I'll be very surprised if there are many people whose answer is yes. I'm guessing most answers will be no. If it's yes, you have good financial advisors. Yeah, so this is the problem, right? The best investment option in the world, I mean in India for gold, is by far SGB. But nobody tells you to invest in it because there's no margin in it for them. Like, everybody sells you something because there's a tiny margin somewhere loaded, right? How many insurance advisors tell you ki boss, you know what, just put money in term insurance? Nobody sells you plain term insurance. They'll say term insurance plus option to invest in mutual fund, or term insurance plus some cash flow at the end, term insurance plus some retirement flow. Nobody will sell you simple term insurance or health insurance. Nobody actively sells you FD. Bank ka money comes from FD. Even bank tries to sell you other stuff. Simplest investment product, government bonds. Nobody sells government bonds. Like, it's crazy. Like, last year I had to like do a series of webinars just to tell people ki boss, listen, I'm not getting any money out of this because obviously government of India doesn't pay me, but please invest in government bonds. It's better than FD. It's better than any fixed income as an interest product you can find in the world. But instead people sell you bespoke opportunities, inventory financing, 18% interest, 13% AO. Nobody sells you government bonds. Nobody sells you plain vanilla FDs. Nobody sells anybody term insurance or simple health insurance. nobody sells sovereign gold bonds. Basically, nobody has an incentive to sell anything to anyone unless there's a margin. Now, while it's okay in other, so if you are going to buy a car and if the salesman has a margin, I understand it, right? Because of course it's a healthy margin. He has to run his business. But in a financial product, it doesn't make sense because you can discover it elsewhere. Why pay margin to anybody at all? For what? Like when a mutual fund, direct mutual fund guy is taking 2% commission from you, boss, why are you taking 2% commission from me? You are not doing anything, right? Like basically the fund manager is managing the fund. He is taking expense ratio of 0.5, 0.6, whatever. Why is this person getting 2% commission? I can't understand. So if anybody sells you anything, please stay away from it. Financial products are always sold. Dr. Sumitra, I'll answer your question about company FDs with some stories and with some, sorry, not this. This is not the slide. Let me go back to my original presentation. So please, so when your bank ka RM calls you or your insurance guy calls you, please cut the call. Seriously, I mean, do yourself a favor, don't entertain anything. No matter what they're selling, I can promise you there's a scam inside it. I know this because I worked in that system, not exactly as a seller of these products to retail investors, but I used to do interbank and corporate, and my god, the amount of the kind of scams which we used to sell to large corporates is like another level. But and this is a simple thing, right? Don't use bank for anything other than banking. And by banking I mean savings account, FD, and bill payments. That's it. No insurance through banks, no investment through banks, no mutual fund through banks. Banks are the biggest looters on the planet. There is a 2% which is disappearing no matter what you touch. In once you log into your bank account, please ignore all the tabs other than 2 tabs. One tab is savings account, the other is FD. Insurance, gold, investment, mutual fund, anything which a bank sells is way worse than a direct insurance company or a direct broker or a direct gold provider or RBI or anybody will sell. Like I said, government is giving you 7.2% interest, risk-free, 100% sovereign guarantee. Then why on earth is a private bank giving you only 6.8% interest? Where is that 0.4% going? That's a scam, right? 0.5%, why are they taking? If at all, they should give you higher interest than government, right? Because they are at higher risk than government. So use it only for banking. And this is very important. I see people doing this. I am myself guilty of doing this. Don't keep on checking your portfolio. Checking your portfolio won't increase your portfolio, but it will definitely increase your anxiety. Once in a month, once in 2 months, 3 months, once in a year, it's fine. And also stay away from financial news. Financial news is engineered to make people anxious and make them keep on trading. Most of the financial news channels have an incentive with the brokers or advisors or somebody to make you keep on trading. If you keep on trading, they'll make money. Or maybe they're trying to peddle you IPOs, or maybe they're trying to get it. Basically, financial news as we know it right now is completely broken. As a person who used to work in trading floors for like the 4 or 5 years of my initial career, I can promise you no Goldman, Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, Deutsche, Citi, Standard Chartered, any of these banks, nobody listens to news. They switch off the TV, or they keep it in mute so that they just see the ticker. Financial news is engineered to make you trade more. Trading more only loses money. Financial newspapers, WhatsApp tips group, Telegram channels, tip uncles, none of them have done anything good to anyone in the long run. The only things, just to recap, the only things, so I'm concluding now. We'll just take questions if time permits. I'll share this PPT with Dr. Shilpa. The only thing you need to do is understand your, increase your top line, earn more money. Just start somewhere, have a habit, don't spend too much time about it. Just know all your finances very well. Get a good CA, file your taxes correctly. Tax penalties are very high in India. Keep your emergency funds, get a good health and term insurance. Half your personal finance is already solved here. Pay off your loans, obviously. And when it comes to investments, you only need 2 things: equities, fixed income, and gold. If it's equities, put any direct mutual fund or ETF. Don't buy through your distributor, direct mutual fund, anything, it doesn't matter what, just put it in some 2-3 funds, forget it. When it comes to fixed income, Government of India bonds, keep some money in Government of India bonds, 20%, 30%, whatever is your number. Put some money in sovereign gold bonds because it's the best way to invest in golds by far. There's no contest right now. Nobody can compete with the government anyway. And that's it. This is all we have to do for personal finance. It's not complex. There's nothing in it. The only thing we have to do is we shouldn't try to, go too much into it, because ultimately, like you, like me, like everybody else, our biggest hustle and the source of income is our profession. There's no point in defocusing ourselves to come to this side when this side is very simple. It's just equity ETF. So basically, or let me put it this way, right? All of personal finance can be summarized this. If somebody asks me for personal finance, it's very simple. I'll just recap: emergency fund, insurance, literally compressing the last 1 hour into 60 seconds, no loans, investment. This is it. And in investments, one is equity, which is direct mutual fund. Direct mutual fund, not other mutual fund. I'm stressing this again. Interest rate bearing instruments, which is fixed income, which is either government bond, not either government bond, and put money into mutual fund that invest in government bond, not direct government bond, because it's simpler. And finally, gold through SGB. So I know I took like an hour and a half to explain all of this, but technically, this slide is all you need. Emergency fund, insurance, no loans, and then comes investment. In investments, equity mutual fund, government bond, and SGB. That's it, right? So, and of course, if whatever you can automate, credit card payments, insurance payment, SIPs, everything automate, so that you are completely unplugged. Once in a quarter, you can look at it, and this is all you need to know about personal finance. There's nothing else we have to do. Doctor, so I'll just take a pause. Dr. Shilpa, you can let me know if we have time for questions. I don't know if you planned for an hour and a half.
No, this is good, sir. But you didn't speak about real estate. I mean, we have loads and loads of real estate which we have hoarded over a long period of time. So what is the status of real estate, especially in India, for doctors? Because they kind of that's the easiest way, because they see the property that they buy, and between the apartment or land. I mean, what is your take on it?
So the thing is this, right? The direction of real estate is anybody's guess. Or let me tell you what is alarming me. Okay, there is one thing which is a no-brainer. I am not sure if it makes sense to buy a flat as an investment. In fact, I can readily say it makes zero sense to buy a flat as investment, because last 10 years data indicates that flats have massively underperformed equity. Right? Flats have not given anywhere near Nifty returns, and Nifty is like the mainstream index. So if you compare it with a different index like mid cap or something, real estate has really underperformed. In fact, so I don't own property in my name, or as in I don't own property at all. My wife has land, etc. in Kozhikode, but I haven't bothered with even buying a flat, for the simple reason that flats. So every single person I know who works in real estate says that, look, if you want to live in a flat and utilize it, buy a flat, right? Because look at it like buying a car. It's a depreciating asset. It's not an investment. You buy a car because it's joy for you, right? It's not because it is like you're planning to, like, ek BMW abhi lega, 2 years baad it will be this much money. That's not how we look at it, right? Flat, you have to look at it strictly as that. You have a place which you can call your own. There's emotion, sentiment, whatever. You can do up that place the way you like it. Nobody can ask you to leave suddenly, etc., etc. There is that benefit, of course. But as an investment, putting, or let me give you one more interesting, and this is important because this is happening now. So last year, in my home state, there was a major builder major project being announced, right? And we out of curiosity, because I liked that place, I just called them and asked them, boss, what's the price of this project? And they said, sorry sir, it's completely sold out, no price. I'm like, okay, fine. And So I cut the call, and but then after that, every 1 week I'll get a call saying one more thing has opened up, one building has come up, one unit has come now, etc., etc. And then I was in the city, and I was roaming around in the city, and I saw a huge banner by the builder saying, "Thank you to the people of XYZ city. This project is fully sold out." Now here's the catch. There is something called RERA, Real Estate Regulatory Authority. They have a website where you can actually go and type the name of the project, and it tells you how many units are available. So I went to the RERA website and I looked at the statistics. So the thing which I called them for, they said 1 unit available or 0 units initially, 1 unit has opened up newly, whatever gyan they gave me. And they also put a huge banner in the city saying thank you to the people of this city for fully selling this out. Here's the number. They have around 550 total units, of which 290 are vacant, and of the remaining 260, not all are sold to end buyers. It is actually sold to partners and brokers. So the actual end user occupancy of a project they have sold me, there are 0 units available. Of a project they put a huge banner saying thank you to the people of XYZ city, you have sold it out, is less than 20%. So I am not anybody to comment if real estate is a good investment or a bad investment, but the more I hear this kind of story, the more I go to the RERA website of any state and see that most of the things which are fully sold out are not actually sold out. This is another interesting data point. Few of my friends are real estate flippers. They basically develop real estate, flip it to people. So this person asked me to do something. So I live in JP Nagar. So I asked him, bro, what do you think about buying a flat? He said, dude, after 7:30 p.m., take your car out, drive on Kanakapura Road, look on both sides, see how many lights you see on both sides at 7:30 p.m. If you don't see too many lights, you have your answer. And I'll urge you to do this also, right? Wherever you are hearing there are projects being announced or completed or sold, please go for a drive after 7:30 p.m. there. So if you do that, one thing is for sure, buying a flat is definitely not an investment, right? It's only a utility. So when it comes to real estate, buying a flat, no. Buying land is more complex because there are a couple of problems which are there. See, again, if it's 100% white, then the return will be different. So if you are buying 100% white, then it won't give you the same return as the other color. So a lot of Indian real estate is done in a different color, which is also explaining the source of return. I am not sure how much return you will get if you are doing all white in real estate. But let me put it this way, right? If buying so if your question is buying a flat a good investment idea, the answer is outright no. 10 years of data has shown that it has underperformed equity. Is buying land a good idea? It's a better idea than buying a flat, but is it a good idea? It's a question mark. Simply because it depends on the. So if you're buying land in center of Bangalore, maybe it's a saturated market. If you're buying land far away in, let's say, a Mandi or something, maybe it can increase, maybe it can decrease. But again, the problem is, do you want to? It will have necessary headaches to you in terms of owning that property, making sure that everything is correctly happening. Nobody takes the property suddenly. Like there's all that maintenance wala problem. But again, or let me put it this way, right? If you are okay with equity returns, it does not make sense to put money in land over equity simply because historically in the last 10 years, it has not given better returns, number one. Number two, the transaction white-black is a major concern in India when it comes to calculating return. The third problem is, see, in all scenarios where equity is collapsing, real estate also collapses or at least stays flat. In India, long time back, everybody was buying purely in cash. There was no leverage, but now a lot of real estate is being bought on loan also. So when there is loan component, when a sell-off starts, everyone can sell off. And finally, coming to Dr. Lakshmi's question, agricultural land. Okay, so the thing is, again, I am not an expert on this matter. So please don't take my advice on this, except for the fact that, so the only solid thing which I'm sure of, which I can say is, flats are not good investment ideas. Flats are definitely not good investment idea. Land may be, agricultural land, to answer Dr. Lakshmi's question, better than real estate land, because at least, so it again depends on the geography. So in Kerala, agricultural land is a better idea than real estate land or a flat. But I don't know if it in Bangalore is agricultural land better than the other two. I wouldn't know. So because I'm not an expert on this topic, I'll pass the question. The only thing I'll definitely say is flats are a bad idea.
Yeah. I think this was wonderful, sir. I think you have given a very good outline and a great template, which is very simple. So if it is gold, stick to SGB. If it is investment in equity, stick to Nifty. It can be an ETF, it can be a mutual fund, it can be, I think it is a very straightforward thing to do. And for debt or like for emergency fund, it is gold bonds or FDs. So our fraternity, they are super brilliant in their academics, in their field, in their hard work. But when it comes to actually the numbers, they get overwhelmed and they get intimidated in the beginning. So they don't put their mind into like knowing all this stuff, though it is like, a simple arithmetic. So this whole the idea of having you here was to simplify this whole thing, in spite of you being a CEO of and a founder of one of the, I think, the biggest future and options company. Though I know you told that also, that you don't really recommend people to do it because they are trading their time and not just their money. So I think all of us here have to concentrate on our profession, because it is a very high intensity profession. We are dealing with lives every day. We are dealing with our night schedules. We are dealing with weekends schedules and a lot of things. So in this time and era, I think what you have told is like excellent to simplify the finances, taking care of the loans that they already have, to finish the loans and not to like, keep their credit card bills pending. Also to keep banking only for banking. I think this is one of the most important thing, because I know doctors are the easiest ones who kind of fall prey to all these the instruments, the so-called financial instruments that are being sold by even the reputed banks. So this one, I think, is a great thing that you did, keeping it very simple, very basic, and for all of us to understand. So if Dr. Rajeshri Paladi madam is there, I would like her to speak a few words. I don't know, because I thought this will get over in 45.
Shilpa,
Yes,
yeah,
ma'am.
Shilpa, I'm here. I have been listening right from the start, because financial management is one thing which, my generation would have hardly understood or hardly made an attempt to be a part of active interaction, rather than leaving it on spouses. And rightly said that ours is a high intensity profession. So I extremely grateful, happy, and congratulate you for taking up this aspect of educating our fraternity regarding the financial management. And kudos to our guest speaker, who has excellently and very simply put in the concept in the, especially the last slide of 60 seconds, wherein he very in a simple manner he put in the headlines. And I think that is what is needed for all of us. And if we can stick on to some simple measures, then our life would be much, much more confident and comfortable. Thank you so much for bringing in this.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. We are very, very grateful for your time.
No,
And
very, very happy to do this. I really, really enjoyed doing this. Very, very thankful to you for giving this opportunity to speak.
we had almost like 150 participants who benefited from your talk, and I encourage everyone to watch Zerodha Varsity videos on YouTube, and also Mr. Abid's the session on government bonds. It's a great one. I think all of us have to keep watching it now and again, because we kind of tend to forget and then again go back to our old habits of doing things our own way. I think there is enough and more which is available online. So please, I think all
Yeah.
of us because at least we need to teach our children the mistakes
Yes.
we did. I think
Yes.
shouldn't be repeated by our
Yes, sir.
next generation. And saving every penny and investing it, I think, goes a long way for our retirement, because we'll not be eternally as energetic as we are now. So thank you, sir. Thank you. It was wonderful to have you. I'll meet you sometime. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Because it's been wonderful.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, Rajesh.